So today we're going to talk about brisket on your Broil King keg. It's one of those things that's pretty easy to do. There's a lot of time involved. The results are spectacular. Let's get to it. So when you work your way through the history books of American Southern style barbecue, you'll come across brisket, ribs, pulled pork. Those are three staples in American barbecue. Any barbecue restaurant that's worth its salt will have those items on the menu. They'll be featured. There's a bunch of different ways to do brisket. It evolved in a lot of ways because it was a cheap cut of meat. So we have this whole brisket. All the corners here are quite clean, actually. It doesn't hurt to flip it over. Now I'm going to try to keep one hand clean here to work the knife so it doesn't get slippery. The brisket's already slippery enough. There we go. And this is the real appealing side of it here. So you can see the grain in the brisket running on about a 45-degree angle across the brisket. That's the brisket flat. So that has really consistent grain to it, great for slicing, for sandwiches, and it has these really long fibers in it. So if you do shredded brisket, pulled brisket, you get these really long, really tender pieces once it cooks down in the smoker. Other things to look at, especially this area here, this is a hard fat. So I'm going to trim some of that out of there. Now, you don't want super hard white fat through there, especially on the edges, but just the way the two muscles come together, take a few minutes and just trim it up. So being as careful as possible here, just going to work my way through there and clear some of this off. Again, it's a really odd arrangement, the way the point and the flat come together. Very strange muscle. That's part of why it was a cheap cut to work with. Pretty clean through there, not a heck of a lot happening here. Fat cap on the brisket, we've got two spots where there's a nice healthy fat cap. If you just clean that down to white fat, you're in pretty good shape. You don't want to take it all away. In some respects, it protects your brisket from too much heat if your smoker gets hot. But again, it's really hard to season through, and you want a nice consistent layer of seasoning all the way across your brisket for that killer bark, really good flavor to work with. So I've got that trimmed down, maybe a little bit thin there. You want to leave a little bit of fat on there. Work this back to the silver skin. You can see where they come together there too. So you can trim these as much or as little as you'd like. Don't knock yourself out. It's a pretty inconsistent cut to work with anyway, so you're not going to make it look like a piece of art before you throw it on the smoker. But trim to your heart's content, I guess. You can see how that subcutaneous fat just comes right away from the actual muscle that you're working with. If you're trying to set up a brisket on your Broil King keg, you may have one arrangement that you particularly like. If you've never done it before, this is a good way to go, but it's not the be-all and end-all. So don't feel compelled to use a recipe. This is a technique. This is a method that works to give you really good brisket. With the Broil King keg, it's such a moist cooking environment already that it doesn't tend to dry out. So I tend not to inject my briskets, but again, try it out. Give it a shot. You might stumble on something that is awesome.